Decorating Pages podcast presents Production Design Film Study. This class examines Oscar-nominated films spanning a century of cinema. Accomplished professionals in production design will explore and dissect the sets featured in these nominated films and will educate why they were recognized for the design of their time. This class features the films of 1947. This year's films are reviewed by Kim Wannop, set decorator, Adam Rowe, production designer, and Lydon, production designer, art director. The films for this year are Black and White nominees The Foxes of Harlow and Great Expectations. The color nominees are Black Narcissus and Life with Father. Okay, I first of all would like to say I'm glad that you picked a year, 1947, that had black and white and color, because it's fascinating to me at this point of how they nominated color and black and white, but only two in each.
Right.
Do you think that was because of the war? I was thinking about that. Like,
absolutely.
Why?
Yeah, because when I was researching Black Narcissus, that was one of the things that came up, that it was all the color stock was kept by the military at that time. It was not released to the public. So they couldn't shoot in color anytime during the war. And it was only after, so it was all released then. Because, we had color movies from like 1938 with Robin Hood, or 1936 maybe. So it was definitely around, but it was a war thing.
So why did you pick 47? Because Kim told me that she gave you the choice, and I just was wondering why did you go back to 47?
I picked 1947 for two reasons. One of the first reasons was that it was the Black Narcissus. That movie's a fantastic movie, I feel. And it still holds up well today. And it's on, everybody's top 100. It's one of these movies that influenced Scorsese. Lots of film directors talk about it. The collaboration between the DP and the production designer is seamless, I feel. Mm-hmm. It's a fantastically well-made movie, well thought out, well conceived, and very groundbreaking movie as well. That was the reason I picked 47, and also the fact that we have that transition between color and black and white. And I feel that some of the movies on our list, particularly the black and white ones, feel more old school. Well, particularly I feel Foxes and Life with Father feel more distant, that it's a transition period as well. It's like they're big budget movies, but they feel like they could have been shot 10 years beforehand in the 30s, where, Great Expectations and Black Narcissus, I feel, were more pointing to the future. They're more, coming more contemporary in their shots, in their design, in their just acting. Everything felt more very, very, felt more connected to more modern audiences. I feel like Great Expectations, you could watch that movie today as well and feel connected to it.
Yeah, I found it interesting that both Foxes of Harrow and Life with Father took the same amount of film. And they're two completely different kinds of projects. But you have Foxes of Harrow up on the screen, and I would never have watched it if you didn't pick 1947.
I would never have watched this.
Yeah.
This is what's great.
I enjoyed it.
Me too. I was like, oh, this is such a wannabe Gone with the Wind.
Yes. But, it was the same, art director who did Gone with the Wind was involved.
He just used the same plans, I think. And he just... But
yeah,
I love Maureen O'Hara.
Yeah,
I love Maureen O'Hara. Her voice.
Maureen O'Hara was great in this. Yeah,
everything.
She was really great in this. I agree.
I do feel it's a good movie. I just feel it feels slightly older than being a contemporary movie for 1947, because it's like we're just post World War II. It's like, we can get into it when we talk about Black Narcissus, but it's, women were more liberated during the war because they were at home and they were like on the home front and they were working and they had more liberation because the men were all off fighting the war. And this feels like a kind of a transition period where post, nuclear bombs and everything. And I just, Foxes is great, but I feel it feels like it's an older time. Even though it's an entertaining movie, yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. But it's funny about that from your point of view. You're right on everything you're saying. I felt like it was trying to feel like a classic storybook because it was telling a story of a long time. I loved how they showed like the voodoo and those elements that felt very, would you make that movie the same way now? Probably not. And granted, I haven't done my research on what voodoo or what that lifestyle was like, but it felt very believable and natural to me. It didn't feel Hollywoodized or sensationalized. Now it might have been, that's my ignorance speaking there, but I was into it all the way. I was like, ooh, this is when this movie's getting interesting.
This I should back up a little and say that the film is pre-war New Orleans, and an Irish gambler who's played by Rex Harrison buys his way into society, something he couldn't do in his homeland because he was illegitimate, and he basically gets rich, has a plantation, and has a life that isn't perfect. That's kind of...
So, and I thought actually you picked this movie too, Raph, because it starts in Ireland. Like, I thought there was that connection.
Amaury Nahara.
Yeah.
I mean, Black Narcissus has, Deborah Kerr, she's English, but, she's playing an Irish nun, Sister Clodagh. So there's a whole Irish connection to this.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was wondering, actually. There wasn't a part of Foxes of Harrow that I wasn't delighted by. Like, scenically speaking, I actually looked up, too, and it sounded like, from what I was reading, that part of that movie was filmed on location at the bar. I looked it up, and it actually doesn't look that different. I'm like, how can it be still standing? It's called Maestro. Hold on, I looked it up.
Yeah, because it was shot...
Maestro, the art...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it was shot in New Orleans and the Fox lot.
Yeah.
There's a part of current day Yelp photos of this restaurant that don't look that different from the gambling scene. And it blew my mind that at that time they would have shot on location. And I don't think they did. I think they just took it as a reference and then built it, whatever they built. Or it's just purely outrageous coincidence. And, the production designer or art director took, New Orleans detail.
Right.
That's what.
I might have a photo of that. I don't think I have a photo of that bar.
Okay, let's go. Hold on. I want to go back just a second. I want to point something out that I thought was interesting. One more forward. So the chandelier that comes down the staircase. So it was when you were showing that absolutely outrageous staircase.
Yeah.
So this feels like a symptom of theater too. That like when you have a theater and you do a parlor or you do a big room, you can't get chandeliers big enough to feel scale appropriate. Like, doesn't that chandelier on the left look dinky?
It does. It does.
Absolutely.
But yet, but yet, it might even be the same chandelier in the bedroom. It's just too big.
They're right. That's true. You're right.
Yeah. I had seen that and I was like, oh, either they just wanted to use same chandeliers all through, or it's the same chandelier. They just moved it over for the scene. Which could be.
And then I was like, okay, all this beauty and all this detail that all these people went through, and I'm like harping on the chandelier, like what an asshole I am.
No, but it's true. It's a scale thing is true with lighting all the time. Especially modern lighting that's so thin and delicate and everything, and you're like, oh my god, I have this huge space, and I can't get enough lights in here because they're smaller or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You just got to have lots of them.
But that gambling parlor in the beginning, I thought was fantastic. The density of it and the different levels and the lighting, all the gas lamps and everything. I did enjoy that set.
Everything about this period, this movie, but then also 1947 movies, were still filmed in a theatrical style. Like most of the time you feel like you're looking at a room in one direction or two directions. That follows through in all the movies. And I actually really like that. It somehow makes scenes settle more. And you really, as a designer, I think, and a set decorator, you get to really focus on what looks beautiful because the camera's looking a certain way, or at least that was my take on some of these sets.
Yeah, there's a feeling of like collaboration with all the departments.
Yeah.
They've set up these shots and the lighting, the set deck, the architecture, everything. It feels like they've talked about it, and it's, you know, it's not like on the fly handheld, you know.
Yeah.
It's a different time, and it's definitely a very collaborative. They're like creating like oil paintings nearly.
Yeah.
It feels like.
And
Still.
and the highlights on the walls, like they just
Yeah.
highlight walls differently than we do now.
Right.
I do love all of the drapery in.
Drapery's fantastic in this movie.
It's
This is a lot of
fantastic,
really good.
except for it's a little much in the slave quarters.
Yeah, yeah.
That to me, and the way I definitely think this would be made way different. The relationship between the slaves and the landowners.
How do we feel about the still you have up right now with him in the bed? Do we feel like why the drapery above him there? Do we kind of
That's
give
forced.
him like yeah? But is it supposed to be like symbolic that he's kind of the head of that group? He's kind of like the king of the slaves, because he's the only one that really talks beside his wife. The whole lot of them.
He's what was in the Gone with the Wind, Big Jim? He's like Big Jim, right?
Yes.
But even look at the
know.
scale of the ceiling too. Like that's what I like, is that like this team was aware that like they had less money, they had less comfort, and I mean even in just these side by side pictures, look at the difference in class that it's showing.
Yeah. And the lighting as well. I mean, it's lit from below, like to say, oh, it's just a few candles down around, you know, the tables or whatever they're lighting. He has no chandelier.
Yeah, one of my favorite sets was actually the cellar.
Yes, the cellar was a good set.
Yeah, I loved the beer steins and all the wine and stuff. I just thought that set was great. Oh, right, the little kid set I loved. I loved how that room just looked like there's paneling right behind his bed. That was just I went gaga for it.
I loved the kids' room, and I love this drapery, and that it's not open. Like this is so odd to me, and so fantastic that the drapes are drawn. And they're still getting what they need from it.
Don't you think this room looks a little bit like we were allowing ourselves to look like the 40s?
Yeah, it looks Mommy Dearest to me.
Yeah, but this room kind of steps out, I feel, from the other parts of the house a little bit.
Yeah, but I didn't mind it. I just was paying attention.
No. Yeah, but in an interesting way. Yeah, it's definitely, it feels slightly 40s. All right. Yeah, for sure.
I did like how much depth they got, like in the hallway and the main foyer, and they built a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look through, like everything sort of like connects, and the pocket doors are all open, and it's a huge set that they built.
It's massive. Yeah. I was thinking about when I was looking at this, and they're having the. I was thinking, was this, you know, the very opening scene where he's born in Ireland in the bedroom?
Yeah. I
felt that was, might have been part of this set that was recycled a little bit. It just had the shape of it. Just something stuck out to me about it a little bit, the windows and stuff. How did you guys feel about that?
I didn't think about it.
Okay.
All I can remember is that there was a space. And, you know, it's funny when I start any movie that the first 10 minutes, it's like, you know, the first impression is the most important. I'm basically kind of like open. I'm the most open I'm ever going to be in the first 10 minutes of a movie. And if they don't have me, I'm like, you know, then I'm going to start ripping it apart. But at that point in the movie, I was just kind of like, oh, we're in Ireland. This is fun, you know, and I didn't know anything about what Ireland looked like at that time. So it could have been anything, you know, it might have been lying to me, but I thought it was real. I also didn't really know what was going on. Like I was a little, you know, they're not super forward exactly in what's happening in the opening scene, which I liked. A mystery.
Now this was only nominated for production design. It had no other nominations.
Right.
I love that steamboat too. That whole steamboat I thought was fantastic.
Steamboat was very cool. Yeah. Where did they shoot that part? I guess in New Orleans. Except for this is probably at the Fox lot.
Yeah, this looks like a build, but I'd had to be in New Orleans, right? Even they have drapery in those little windows. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And they didn't CNC that. Like that's the other thing. I'm like, somebody with a jigsaw for like 6 days had to make all that early stuff.
It was pretty talented. Yeah. I liked, the opening. This was good because also when he was stranded on the sandbar and all that, that was great. And the other guy shows up with the through the fog on the barge.
Yeah.
So one thing that is interesting about studying them next to color, and this is an interesting slide because you have this red and his tan pants and the yellow book next to this black and white. Obviously, it's monochromatic, like there's no color going on. But the costumes in this movie really actually stood out to me that they were
Oh.
using super range, like big range.
Yeah.
Like there's even when he's hanging out with his friend, their outfits are different color. But I didn't think the set did that much. And I just don't know enough about designing for black and white to know if you want everything to be lit, light,
Yeah.
but you don't really see, even when you're in the cellar, it was not bright, but it wasn't dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved her wedding dress.
Yeah.
Wedding dress
great.
was fantastic. This exterior I thought was fantastic. Everybody coming with their torches, which I thought, this movie's gonna go a different way. I didn't know what was going on, but it's a good. That's when I think either the baby was born, I think, or he.
This was when the baby was sick, I think, was
sick
it?
when he was.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, but that was great direction because I also was in suspense. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And then it turned out to be kind of like celebratory-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then these fields.
I'd have to say I love the cornfield stuff.
The fields were fantastic.
And
Yeah,
it just looks like it was done on the lot. It feels.
And then in the morning, all the stalks are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big. They were full. They show it full. They show it this half, and then they show it all gone.
Yeah.
What's interesting too about this stuff is that, like, for audiences at home, this kind of stuff is really hard to do. I did do a tomato garden for Criminal Minds one time. I don't even remember what the plot line was for. And it had to be harvested. And so, like, doing, what was the remake they were going to do, Kim, with the cornfields and the baseball team?
Oh, Field of Dreams, yeah.
You need it to be real. If it doesn't look real, it doesn't move in the wind, and they had great wind in this scene, and there was weather and lightning, like, it had to have been real. So, like, did they plan this ahead of time? It just, I was thinking about all of that when I was watching this, going, gosh, this was a difficult thing to make.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that all the time of, like, especially watching these old movies, like, oh, that must have been a real thing because there's no way they could reproduce that then. Like, I just give it benefit of the doubt of, like, they could not have done that, right?
Yeah, it's like the whole thing of, the Egyptians could never have built the pyramids.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Stonehenge.
So, do you guys think this was on a soundstage, or you think this was outside? Like,
I'd say it was
the right was. I think the right is a soundstage. I don't know. That would be my guess.
Probably, yeah, you're right. But it's great though. That scene is great with the wind blowing and, like, they all come out and she's like, start cutting it down, and then they all kind of disappear back in. It's a very, very kind of.
Yeah, they're like they're hiding in there, and she tells them to come out, and then she says, "Get back in there and cut it down."
And a movie like this is politically challenging right now because, like, would you be able to make this again? This is an author, an African American author who wrote honestly, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do a ton of research on it, but it's like, if you can watch it through the lens of the time that it was made, I think it's a pretty interesting lens, and the way they obviously treat people of color and treat women, like, we're different now, we've matured. And I think movies like this are valuable, even though I'm saying this because I'm seeing all the censorship going on and canceling old movies, and we don't want to see that, and we don't want to read that, and we don't like that artist. It puts me in a weird paradox because I'm like, this is actually a very good movie that shows you what it's fictionalized, but what it could have been like. And I don't know. I felt like I learned.
I don't think it would be made this way.
It would definitely not be,
But I had read that it was an African American writer and everything, and even at that, I bet you they changed things in this to make it softer. Do you know what I mean? They like the treatment of that head slave is like no, they would never be nice to him like that, or I don't know. I was just like,
I agree with you, and like the nonchalantness of seeing what's going on in the bar the first time that we're there, that all these white men are bidding on slavery, and then they go about drinking, like, that's agog to us now, but like it's shown in a way that I'm sure was accurate, or maybe even Hollywoodized. I don't know.
it was probably quite accurate to, what was going on.
And then that's right. He goes and he like takes the female slave off of the wagon, remember? And she runs.
Yes.
And he's like, go get her. She likes it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's your wife.
Yeah, go ahead.
She's into it, It's so crazy.
Well, and I like that she actually got a really important part in the movie again. Like she recurred. She wasn't just a throwaway part. Yeah. And the fact that O'Hara, I can't remember the character's name, goes to her obviously to learn. I don't know. I found all that to be very interesting.
Yeah.
The other part of like the kid is born with a club foot, and the dad's like, "We'll make him perfect. We'll do it. We'll make him perfect." Like that, and I think that's timely. That's a timely attitude.
Well, that's clearly like the white man attitude. Like, I'll fix this.
Yeah.
Don't worry about whatever. I'll make this with my attitude will fix his medical condition.
Yeah, and then again. Another spoiler, jump ahead if you don't want to hear this. The kid dies. I'm sick of watching movies. The kids die. Like, it's a sin. Took a tumble and he's out.
Yeah, he really did. It was obviously a dramatic part, but it was a very undramatic death.
You didn't even. I mean,
you didn't see it either.
That was good. I don't want to see it, but
still.
But again, how much it like mimicked Gone with the Wind, falling down the stairs and like.
Yeah, and Rex Harrison's character is very much like Clark Gable.
Yeah.
Same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It's the same vibe, the whole thing. And I mean, it is the same, designer. Well, it's not the same designer, but he was the art director, right?
Yeah.
Lyle Wheeler.
Yeah.
I would say A+ for taking me away in a different world. Like I enjoyed what I saw in this movie.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised as well. I hadn't seen this movie before.
I had never seen it. I'm glad did you watch it on that thing I found?
I did. I watched it.
OK.ru, and they have a ton of like old movies on there.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just projected it up onto my like Apple TV and watched it then.
Oh, nice. So this was, as you just said, production design by Lyle Wheeler and Maurice Ransford were nominated, and set decoration by Thomas Little and Paul S. Fox. All right, let's.
And Lyle Wheeler went on to design the Perry Mason TV show in the 60s.
Oh, Adam, you should know that.
Why should I know that?
Perry Mason? Oh, not Perry Mason. Sorry, you're Matlock. Sorry, I get my detectives. I got my detectives mixed up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But New Perry Mason is so beautiful. Like, that's a little plug there. It's just a beautiful show.
It is. I'm getting paranoid. I just want to check something. Okay, still recording. Okay. I get very scared that all of a sudden something has stopped. Okay. Great Expectations. Now, how many versions of this movie have you seen?
And TV shows.
And TV shows.
Yes.
And we read it. We all read it in high school, right? Like.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was in it. I was Magwitch in the play.
Who were you?
I was the guy, the prisoner.
Oh, wow.
Wow, good one.
With my high-pitched voice.
And did you have an eye patch?
I don't think so, no, but I was definitely dressed in like an old potato sack or something. It was high school. I can remember, having in the play, he gets stabbed. I don't remember the name of the other prisoner that he's got that lifelong fight with, but in the movie, it's a boat chase scene. But in the play, they stab each other. And I can remember I had to have a death scene, and it was, I'm sure, my finest, most miserable moment. No, I definitely saw the most modern one. Is that Ryan Felipe? I don't remember who's in it. The newest one.
Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow
and Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And De Niro. De Niro took over your role.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know, Great Expectations is Charles Dickens' story. What? Yeah, Charles Dickens. And then a humble orphan boy in 1810s Kent is given the opportunity to go to London and become a gentleman with the help of an unknown benefactor. I had never seen this version.
I had seen this version a long time ago, but it's one of those movies I think that stands out because just the composition of it. Like, even, it was shot by David Lean, who went on to do Lawrence of Arabia and A Passage to India and all those movies. This is one of his early movies. He had been a technical director, I guess they called him back in those days, which would have been like kind of like a DP. And then he got into full on directing. He got his break. But this is great because of like the use of, in the graveyard. I think the graveyard set is a fantastic set because, it's got all those foreground pieces, and they're clearly using early use of, a dolly and stuff where they go by, they track by them and all that. And it's, it's good composition of shots and all this in the foreground, as you can see in these pictures here, this one.
Yeah, it does. And it has like, there's just a really great seamless quality from what I'm assuming is a location when you see him running away, because you have that long path that he's on, unless it's a huge soundstage, because it seemed pretty seamless. And that's when I got really enamored by the movie, because I was like, ooh, this is they put some money into this. They were trying.
And it's fantastic when he's running along on the moors as well, where they have all the hangman nooses and stuff.
Yeah.
I also
given that visual sense of danger, that he's out there in this place that's full of convicts and, in graveyards.
And he's going to see the grave of his mom and dad, which is so sad. But I also think, like, what you were saying with, like, the ability back then, which I think is so beautiful, and I was also so impressed with this and Black Narcissus, of like, it's crystal clear when I'm watching this, and I almost couldn't believe, like, this is almost 100 years old. Like, the film, it's fantastic, but in a scene like this, when you have a foreground piece and they ask for something, they're going to ask for something. And you have this, that they're going to use one of your trees, and the negative space of it, and the black, and it's almost like hands coming in to grab him. And, like, I just thought this whole movie, there's such a language that they use with foreground pieces and shadow and everything. I just loved it. I was, like, just in awe of so many of these scenes, the composition of the scenes.
Absolutely. I mean, it does show like another great movie of collaboration with production designer, director, cinematographer. It's, it's like a really good holy trinity right there, and the everything, all the detail in the scenes, the set decoration is amazing as well, and everything. I don't think I have a better picture of the little cottage that they live in, but that's fantastic. Like the brick and the wood and the, it's all the low ceilings and the minimal furniture. And it's a really fantastic, it's a tiny set too. Like, I don't know, like, feels like the cameraman was up against the wall. It's really compact. And even when they're having that, the friends come over and they're having the little dinner scene, and they're talking about the pork pie as a dessert.
Yeah.
And they're all crammed around that little tiny table, and it's a really compact thing. And then he tries to run out, and the soldier comes in the door and hits him, and it's like hitting against the guy at the table. It's good use of visual use of elements and composition.
I wrote that down. I love the shot of the soldiers outside of the house, and they're all in shadow, and they're all walking in shadow, and how they used that effect. It was like, it's so beautiful. I think this is just such a beautiful.
They use shadow. They use shadow in the blacksmith room too. Like, they show that we're fixing the handcuffs or whatever they were fixing, all in shadow or something like that. They really. All of what you're saying is right, but I think the thing that I like the most is what you touched on, Kim, is that there is a style to this movie. And, Wes Anderson, we all pick on him because he's got his own style, and it happens in every movie. And, lots of movies nowadays have it, but it's so fun when it rings out like a bell, and this movie had it. I mean, a lot of that comes, I think, from Charles Dickens being such a great writer, and he created these worlds. I mean, we haven't even talked about Miss Havisham's house, but like, that's the tent pole that holds up the whole freaking movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, before we jump on to Miss Havisham's, I had a note about, you probably don't have a shot of it, but Pip's bedroom.
No.
So he's in that little bed.
Yeah, that little bed.
The above, like the attention to detail, like if you look above his bed, there's like a mark on the wall where his head is obviously,
the grease of his hair.
Yeah, as
Yes.
if he's been staring out the window, because it's all that thing about the ghost coming in the window or whatever, like the convict told him. But he's obviously got imagination, or he's staring out to somewhere else. That's the kind of thing, he's going somewhere else. I just felt it was nice attention to detail that he had this worn mark above the bed.
And that you can get that in black and white too.
Yes, and you can see that in detail. Very much, they made a point of it. I feel like it was like a character detail.
I think maybe because this is Criterion Collection, it's restored so well. I don't know.
Yes.
Right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Miss Havisham's fantastic.
Miss Havisham's, the drapery again. The drapery, which plays a big part in the end.
The drapery in this one, like, really gets to steal the show at the end when the curtains get blown open and you see that they give them a rat nod all of it, and they dusted all of it, not just the part that was on camera. You get this huge sweeping view of him.
I almost gagged. I was like gagging when I was like, so much dust. I can't. Oh. It was so gross. It's a great scene, but I was like, oh God, it's so dirty. It's so gross. Or when he takes the tablecloth off of the table to try to put out the fire later on, that's fantastic too. But yeah, I don't know. All this cobwebbing that they made this mansion aged from the day that of her wedding, and she still got her wedding dress on. It's so ridiculous.
And it's great, and her hair like looks like it's merging into the cobwebs. It's all crazy, and it's. It nearly feels like a Tim Burton movie for a second or something. It's just, it's got some good like elements, the lighting, the texture of it all, and the characters, and her hair.
Yeah. What's fun too is that, yes, it is like the most exciting part scenically of the show, but I find that everything else leveled up to it. It's not the only best set in the show. Like when you go and you see the streets of London, knowing that they were built, and you see where the boats are, like all that rises to this level of quality that this team produced. I liked all that.
I particularly liked Mr. Jagger's office, lawyer's office, because it's just the level of stuff that he had going on with the big table and the big the big desk, and he's a big guy. It's a big table. Everything's very kind of like, watch out, I'll put my hand through it if I touch it too hard. He's a big personality. He's stern, and and then having the death masks on the wall as well is fantastic. And the noose, as we can see on the other wall.
Yeah,
he's got all that. He's got that kind of dark museum collection going on all around him. As as set dressing, it's really great.
He's just big in every set. He's big. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
When you walk into his place too, there's kind of a Harry Potter-ness going on, because nothing is straight. Cool. Everything's kind of crooked.
Yeah.
His assistant's kind of in a weird tucked in place. Like, man, I'd love to design like that. But I've had so many, directors, ADs, DPs talk everyone out of doing that, because they're like, oh, it's hard to shoot, or it'll take too much time. It's like, ugh.
Like, look at this table. Like we were saying, like the door hits the table. This is Pip's childhood home here on the right. It's so small. Like the three of them are stuffed into that corner. He's almost hitting his head on the back.
Yeah, and his knees are nearly hitting the table as well.
They had to move. Look, the light. They had to move over from the center of the table to get the shot. But no, it is. It's constantly make it bigger for camera, make it bigger for crew. Put in another door for crew that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But
it's a really good study in not having ceilings, though. At this and the Foxes of Harrow, they use beams and they use headers in such interesting ways that you kind of forget that they had to light it in such a different way than the way we light things now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if all these sets didn't have ceilings or not, but you see a lot of headers and a lot of cornice and a lot of detail that's like, oh, there might not be a lid on this set.
Right.
then, I mean, Alex Guinness comes in, who's so
I know,
ugly.
it's
So ugly.
fantastic.
He's so
Yeah.
great in this.
You know who he reminds me of is, what's the name of the guy? You remember The Office, the British Office, the first one? What was the guy's name?
Ricky Gervais?
Not Gervais, but the other guy that was one of the
Oh,
guys.
yeah. I know who you mean. I don't know his name.
He looks like him.
He does.
But yeah, this is great as well. And I like the transformation of this as well, as they get more money and stuff.
Yeah. They get more money. His outfits are so ridiculous. Pip's outfits get more and more ridiculous with these big bow ties and the hats and you're really spending it, bro. You gotta
splashing that cash and making
I wondered if the same casting director also cast Grease, because we're supposed to believe that this Pip is like what, 2019?
Yeah.
He's falling in love as a teenager, and that person is clearly in their like 30s. I found that to be interesting, that like, oh yeah, we just kind of all this effort into this believable world, and yet he's supposed to be a teenager.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, especially when he's still living at home and he's like the apprentice. He's supposed to be like 15, 16, I think. And he's like a full-grown man. It's crazy.
Yeah. John Mills, the actor, I think he was the headliner of this as well.
I've never.
Yeah, he's a famous British actor. He was in like Ice Cold and Alex, a bunch of movies in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s was his heyday. But this was, younger. But I think he started as a theater actor.
I do like that they can get that shot down to the street off of their apartment. I thought that was great.
Well, and out of Jagger's office, you see the hair, the hanging like that, and it's kind of high up. It's really dramatic, that shot.
Yeah, and another great dramatic shot is in the courtroom when what's his name, the convict guy at the end is being convicted.
I don't have
that's
that.
a great shot, and it goes by, a dolly shot that goes by all the character actors, all these convicts and thieves and whatever that are all being convicted of murder. It's interesting.
I don't have a picture of when he's with, now I forget her name. He's with her and they're at the dance hall. That big giant dance hall with the big chandeliers and everything.
Yeah.
I don't have a picture of that. I forgot. Yeah, the courtroom of the end, the super high ceilings that they had.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the amount of detail as well in this movie, I think, is fantastic.
Oh, you know what I don't have? The walls of the prison. They had all those drawings on the walls.
Yeah.
That was great too.
Yeah. There's a lot of detail in this movie.
So he grows up, he gets back, he goes, and then there's Adam.
That's me.
But I love the lighting and how they lit this guy and he's got pattern on his shirt. Look at, and even the wall behind him has texture and that stupid painting of the fighter.
There's just so much detail. Yeah. I mean, they really, really thought this out, it's like, it's great.
Yeah.
And this won against Foxes of Harrow, right?
Yeah, great.
This was the winner. Yeah.
Yeah, Great
this
Expectations,
was the winner.
man.
Yeah. For black and white art direction. Yeah.
The last scenes in Miss Havish's I thought was fantastic too. I mean,
this was great. Yeah, it's still I really enjoyed watching this movie. I haven't seen it since I was probably a kid or something, and it really still, the storytelling, everything is great in this, and the design, everything's fantastic. It holds up well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there it is. He takes down the curtains and he lets the light in, and how all the candles blow out and the cobwebs kind of blow. The blowing of the cobwebs too, I thought, oh my God, special effects was like on point.
Yeah, and you wonder if this was what take this was. Was this take like?
Yeah, right.
Was this the first take? I feel like back then they had the money to like, oh no, this is the curtain opening day, and we're going to be opening the curtains all day.
All day.
Yeah.
For our world, it'd be like, oh, we'll get it in 3.
Yeah.
Get 6 cameras, and we'll get it in 3.
Yeah. And then we can fix it in post. We can add more dirt in post or whatever. Cobwebs.
Yeah. But yeah, just fantastic. And the greensman, because the overgrowth of the exterior of the house is fantastic. The cemetery, the marshes you were saying, like
The fight in the mud,
the
all
fight
that
in
as
the
well.
mud. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
good.
all that I'm sure had to be reset a couple of times. It's like
Yeah.
it's just it's a really good, well thought out movie.
So the production designer was Wilford Shingleton, and the set decorator was John Bryan.
Yeah,
So
and
let
and
me.
this
Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this movie also he won the Oscar for this, and his career took off after this. He ended up doing a bunch of big movies, and he did like The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart.
Oh.
And then he ended his career like he was the designer of the original Avengers TV show
Oh, right.
in the 1960s, which has some great sets in that for, very kind of like 60s design sets, fantastic as well. So, a really good designer.
This was the only Best Picture nominee that was also nominated for art direction and cinematography.
Mm.
Yeah, it really is. It is incredible. I like that they took a great weight of seriousness behind making great scenery for this story. Like you need it, and they didn't cheap out on it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
I do think that this design is better than Foxes of Harrow.
Yes.
Just
the level of detail.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even like looking at the gravestones there, like just the texture on the walls and everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Where Foxes, it looks great.
It's a little flat.
It feels flat, and it does feel like Gone with the Wind a bit, and it feels more. It's more, the design is more bigger and opulent, where this is more kind of gritty or old, or it's not it's kind of the characters really are part of this set as well.
You're also seeing four different or many segments, but you see Pip's apartment, you see Miss Havisham's place, you see et cetera. In Foxes, you're seeing kind of all the same, it's all in a same category. They could have made the bar look differently, but it didn't look that different from, the house obviously looks great, but I guess that's kind of what you're saying, Kim, when you say flat. It just has the scale doesn't change a lot. The range doesn't change a lot. Even if you take Pip's childhood home and you compare it to Miss Havisham, the scale and the look is completely different. And that happens in, 20 seconds of a movie. You go from one scene to the next, and your eyes are adjusting to all that.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. These two were the only two nominated for Black and White.
Mm-hmm.
Miracle on 34th Street was also released this year. Don't you think that is better than Foxes of Harrow? Because I do.
I think it is as well, but I
interesting.
Can't remember it's been a while since I've seen it, so I'd have to.
Yeah, it's the New York apartment, it's the New York streets, it's Macy's, it's Blooming, it's other department stores.
Well, it's interesting
courtrooms, jails, hospitals. Yeah,
absolutely. It's interesting that there's only two nominations, two entries in both categories of art direction for Black and White, and then for color. There's only 4 movies total.
Yeah, it's weird.
Someone, maybe if it was a thing, someone sitting around a table at the Academy going like, oh, we can't have 6 or we can't have 3 of these or whatever it has to be. Maybe there was some kind of.
It seems to have no rhyme or reason, because I have to pull up my
I'm sorry, I'm kind of thinking about Miracle on 34th Street too. Like Macy's is beautiful, and the little girl going down the street, like there really is some big sets in that movie. What else came out in that year that didn't get nominated? Any other standouts?
Wait, let me just say, so the year before it was 2 and 2. But then it's like 3 and 3.
What?
In 44, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 black and white and 4 color. I mean, there's no rhyme to it. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like during World War II, they were actually making color films as well because there was a shortage, or the whole process was all for the military.
Yeah.
But having said that,
Oh.
that that's more maybe in the US that there was more opportunity to use color film, but definitely in the UK they had to use black and white at that point during the war.
What did you ask me, Adam? I'm sorry.
What other movies came out in 47 other than Miracle on 34th Street that would have been contenders? Because I'm going to watch that movie this Christmas and it'll be in my mind like, oh, why was Foxes of Harrow deemed more worthy of an Oscar nomination than that movie? Maybe Christmas movies were looked down upon, like we love them, but maybe they didn't come out that way,
Yeah. You never know what the politics were of that time,
I don't have the page up right now, but what I tend to look at is who and what other pictures for other categories were nominated that year. Because it's hard to be like, oh, what are the movies of 1947 and go through that long list. But in an Oscar, it has it on their page. It has every year of like who was nominated and who won. And that's the only one that stood out to me that I knew. I mean, there's plenty of movies I've never seen from 1947. So there could be bigger, better ones too that I don't know of. But to me, Miracle on 34th Street, whether you like that movie or not, it looks fantastic.
It just goes to show you what happens now for contemporary Oscars, that there might be beautiful movies that get overlooked, and why does that happen? And that falls on us members to make sure we're voting and nominating. I mean, I'm not any movie academy, but like,
even the Emmys, honest voting is really, and not voting for your friends, which sucks.
Our name recognition.
Yeah, like Severance. I'm really still pissed that Severance didn't get nominated this year.
Andor.
That's so beautiful.
Andor, man.
Okay, I just had something happen. My Zoom went away. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I'm back.
We probably should move on. My gosh, we just chatted about that. We love this one. Okay,
yeah. Okay, we'll move on. This is gonna be a long one too, because Raph is all about it.
I wanted this to be the last one, but probably everybody be
tired. I was doing alphabetical. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine.
But Black Narcissus.
Narcissus.
Yeah, Black Narcissus. Narcissus was a Greek god who like looked at himself in the mirror too much.
Yeah.
And that's where that comes from.
But it also is, the title turns out to be not some elevated poetic allusion, but the name of the pungent aftershave in which the prince perfumes himself with.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, I must say, he didn't look in the mirror. He looked at his reflection in the water too much. That was Narcissus.
Yeah.
So wait, that's where that came from. Interesting. I mean, I knew he said it. It was from his cologne, but I kind of always was thinking about it. Maybe this is what the title is doing. Yeah, but like, it Black Sheep. Someone doesn't belong here is how I kind of took that title the whole way through.
Well, that's that's kind of the overall storyline, I guess. Kim, do you want to do this?
I'm pulling it up. So this story is a group of nuns struggling to establish a convent in the Himalayas. While isolated, extreme weather and altitude and culture clashes all conspire to drive the well-intentioned missionaries mad.
Yeah.
I have never seen this movie. I saw that they did a remake series of it on FX. I didn't watch that either, but it looked interesting, but I never got to it.
Right. So what do you think of it?
Visually, it's stunning. The cinematography is mind-blowing. Again, I thought this could have come out this year, with how crystal clear they have made the print of this. the amount of detail in the wall paintings and the textures I thought were fantastic, and the use of light of the screens, and it's just, it is really beautiful. I didn't get it. I didn't get the movie. I was kind of like, oh, they're going crazy, but why are they going crazy? They're in this beautiful place. Why are they going crazy?
Because it's a movie about contrasts. Like they're in this order, this kind of strict nunnery order, but they're conflicted by their pasts. They're all conflicted by their pasts, all the characters. And what they're doing, are they doing any good in the nunnery, helping the local Indian people?
Right.
So, I just found it's a movie, like, it's all about contrast as well, visually contrasty, but they're all wearing white and they're against these stunning, walls with murals and everything. It's fantastic. This is one of the shots I was going to talk about. This is one of the introduction.
Yeah.
The opening scene, or just after the opening scene.
Before they go to the convent. They're in like a big convent.
Yeah, they're in the convent, and he's been given the task of going to this, old, which I guess was originally a brothel for the Raj or something.
It was where he had all his mistresses, or harem. He had a harem there.
He had a harem there.
So it's all sex on the wall. It's all like Kama Sutra and like all that. All these pictures are on the wall, which I have. I have a picture of that too. But
yeah, but the contrast, like with just this opening where she's, Sister Clodagh, Deborah Kerr, is given the task of forming this new convent up there to help the locals, and she's given, told, you're going to take this sister and everything, and it's fantastic. She looks down at this table that's in like the shape of a cross. Everything is, all the colors are very, blah. It's all very basic. There's no detail on the walls. It's a very contrast of where they're going to go.
Yeah, it's very stark, this convent that they start at.
And what I love as well about this as well is the introduction to Sister Ruth, who was played by Kathleen Byron, who's the crazy one. Yeah. And how they introduce her is an empty seat at the table.
Yeah.
Visually, it says so much about who this woman is going to be. She's not showing up for food.
She's not one of them.
She's not going to connect with the rest of them.
Yeah.
And she's been given the task of taking Sister Ruth with her. Yeah. And then, Kathleen Bryan is obviously, she's only a supporting actor in this, but like she steals the show, I think.
Yeah.
It goes nuts.
Yeah.
So I think I love that contrast as well, where they're all sitting there and then there's an empty table or empty seat at the table. Visually, it's good. This is, good filmmaking, I feel.
Look at that flooring.
The flooring, yeah. It's all very kind of, this table. Is, all a very...
Well, I'm not finding that table. You got to build that. So
yeah,
you gotta, I'm not.
What about the bird room? You're only in there for a second, or the room she throws something in the water in the well, like.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The bird room is like one of those rooms as well that it's only there once, but this is great. Right, yeah, it's fantastic.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and they're only in there once.
I know, it's crazy. It seems like there might have been other scenes that they cut or something, but and I was thinking, oh, they must have reused this room somewhere else. But then I was like, no, look at all that detail on the wall. They weren't going to reuse this room.
What does she throw in there? Because for a while I thought the things that are growing on their fingers and why they're sick became because this woman was throwing things in their water. But I don't know if that was just a red herring of the plot or if I missed something.
Well, they contracted some disease, didn't they? But it wasn't from the water. I think the guy, Mr. Dean, told them it was something else. I'd have to.
Yeah, he said it's not the water. Yeah, it was something else.
But it was all psychological anyway.
I did enjoy that the movie does a good job of not letting you land on the cause, because it could be the wind, it could be the elevation, it could be their past. You kind of run through all these things through the course of the movie when you kind of give up like they do, going, okay, this is just a place we're not supposed to be at, even though it's.
Well, I think the insanity basically came from. Well, they were saying it's the wind, it's this.
Oh, look, they are in that. Is that the same room? They are in that room. Look, they put a flooring over it.
Oh, yeah, they put a floor in. Oh,
so
well done.
This is the hospital.
Yeah, the infirmary. Yeah, the hospital. Yeah,
Great context clues. Yeah, you're totally right.
yeah,
That poor baby.
yeah. That was this was great, and I think like is this just talking about the hospital scene? This one of the first scenes where we kind of really see Sister Ruth kind of starting to lose the plot is when she bursts into the room, and she's wearing the white habit, obviously the nun outfit, but she's got all the blood all over
Oh
the
yeah,
hand.
I have that. I have that later when she's gone crazy. I contrasted it with her.
Yes, maybe I've jumped ahead too far, but that's kind of the showing, because she ends up in that crimson red dress,
Yeah.
and the red lipstick and everything, and her eyes start going redder and redder, and that's kind of like the start. And visually, it's kind of like the kind of showing of how she's going to end up. She's going this other way. There's a contrast between the white with the red, the kind of the devil thing,
Yeah, she's losing it.
Yeah, and like she's so giddy and excited about trying to save the guy's arm or whatever and stop the bleeding. And
but the amount of detail in the doors, in all of the screens, like every shot has these beautiful details in just the wall texture, and then the pattern on the bottom of the wall is so fantastic, and the flooring.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like another great collaboration as well between the DP and the production designer. It's like
to me, yes, I agree with you. But the director had such a clear vision, like even the way the wardrobe flows and the way the crispiness of the habits. Like there are other directors who wouldn't allow that to happen because they're in the way.
And look at how much shadow they get on their faces.
Yeah, exactly. There is a really great cloth ceiling in here that I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to steal that detail one time."
Oh,
you have it in there. It's such a beautiful.
Oh yes, detail. Yeah. It's great. All these sets, like, and it's amazing. This was all shot in England at the Pinewood Studios. The only things that weren't shot were obviously the scenes when they were going there. And that was in a botanical garden in London somewhere. They shot those scenes for a few days. I read. That was the only location stuff. The rest of this was all, all on the backlot or in the stages at Pinewood. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, just like, as you can see in the last shot there, the use of backdrops, painted backdrops, fantastic in this as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that you knew they weren't real. Like, we know we're watching a movie that's not really happening. And I'm only saying this because the Barbie movie used really interesting backings. And I was like, oh, can we as an audience go back to that? Does everything have to be Marvel CGI that goes on and on forever? Can we go back to soundstage scenery where we know we have a world that is presentational? I'm not sure, but we knew it was presentational in Barbie and we liked it, I thought. And I saw a little bit of a connection here.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And it's just, I mean, these backdrops and everything, like they kind of tell a story as well, I feel like. I mean, they're so, this is all long before green screen or anything. And this is either a painted piece of glass in front of the lens, or it's a piece of fabric that's been, painted. And I read that they use natural lighting to light the backdrops in these outside the windows of the sets.
That's crazy.
And they tilted them at a certain angle to catch the light.
Go back to the one that shows the bell, because there's several matte paintings in it, but the glass painting of the bell is the first time I've ever seen kind of a before and after of that quite as interesting. One more.
That's great.
Show the stage floor. Yeah, there you go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, the detail, someone painted that, it's just like we would just, we would just do that in a computer now and whatever. But, Do you
think people are less talented now? I don't think so, but I think that computers are
talented in a different way. And I think also, I mean, this as a project, this took a time to make, it was to do all that work.
But they took that glass and put it under the camera and then shot the glass. That's what I thought I read, right? Is that what you read?
Yeah, they set up the shot and say, this is the shot, and now you paint prospectively on the piece of glass in front of this lens. We're not going to move the lens for 4 days or whatever, and you paint it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's crazy. I mean, the construction of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about a production designer?
Yeah.
So Alfred Jung, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He's German, and he started in theater, and he had a long career in theater before he moved to the UK and got into the film business in Britain. And I think, a lot of his work, I feel like he brought some good theater stuff, like the textures on the wall, the plaster, all that stuff, the model.
Not just that, the perspective. There's the classroom.
Yeah.
The classroom is so obviously shorter at the back of the room than it is at the front of the room. So when the camera gets so wide, it makes the room look bigger and more theatrical than it is, because he designed it that way. And I like how intentional it was. It looks like a scene from a ballet or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all the use of his screens and stuff as well, like how he used the screens for composition and the shots and everything looks great. It's just he's obviously deserves, or the art department.
Yeah, right there. Sorry, it's the picture on the left. So you can see that the back of the room is shorter than what's coming at us, and it's been, it's very. I think of The King and I for some reason when I see this. I'm not sure why, if it's the same visual dialogue, but it's not. It's a different part of the world. But I think The King and I scenery does something similar, where you have this theatrical or operetta background being used.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, here it looks like it's just headers up there, not a ceiling either. Yeah. And it's just the screens, all that stuff.
Oh,
it's
the screens
just fantastic.
are phenomenal.
Yeah. And the amount of work and detail that went into them. And, before CNC machines.
Yeah.
The floor contrasts great with the walls and the set decoration. It's just...
This guy got on my nerves to no end, but
Mr. Dean, he was just a pain in the butt.
Oh my god! And his shorts,
his shorts, and then showing up, purposely showing up with no shirt on and just the short shorts, just to tease the ladies.
I don't have a picture, I don't think, of his little bungalow.
Yeah, I thought that was really well dressed. It was just like all the little details in there, like his little world was interesting.
Oh, there's one on the bottom left.
Right,
yeah.
And she was walking around, she's picking up his things, and he's got all these different kind of...
Flirty.
Yeah, all his little objects and knickknacks and stuff, and his collection of things from his adventures.
I think he was crazy.
Yeah, well, he was clearly, he was that kind of like, I am a British gentleman, but I've been living here too long, and I'm now kind of my own kind of character, and I'm going to taunt all you ladies kind of thing.
I don't know enough about the history of suspense in movie and the Alfred Hitchcock era. I know he's around at this time, but I did see the suspense in this movie come at me as a surprise. The movie definitely takes almost like a Rubik's Cube term that you can't quite tell it's coming. Yeah. And then you have a 10-minute suspense sequence where she's praying and washing her hands in holy water. Even that photograph right there. She looks like a Marvel super villain right there. And I just applauded the movie for going for it. Sorry, go ahead.
That scene of her coming out of that door is crystal clear and so beautiful with the red behind her. And it's as you said, the eyes start getting red, and she's gonna go for it. And then look at the mud. Look at the mud on the bottom of the nun's, outfit, and just the beautifulness of this fog that they painted on. And
it's fabulous. Well, that's another thing. Apparently, I read when I researched this movie a little bit that many of the backdrops were like enlarged black and white photos that the scenic artists color tinted. You know, which is another great thing to be doing, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Say that again. Say that one more time.
So some of the backdrops in the shots were actually black and white photos that the scenic artists went in and color tinted and, you know, touched up.
There's one.
They enlarged these, you know, photographs.
Wow. Okay. Sure. Depending on lighting, that makes sense. You're right.
Yeah.
It looks like a painting right there. It doesn't look like a backing, and we love it for that reason.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also thought that's part of this illusion of like that it's like dreamy or something. Like it's not. This hyper realistic glow is on this film of this of the
like
white
and like Maxfield Parrish is like being used, you know, or I don't know where he fits in the timeline, but like everything has this inner glow to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the DP on this movie was a gentleman named Jack Cardiff.
Yeah.
And he collaborated with Alfred on another project the year before, another movie called A Matter of Life and Death. And that's a great movie as well. Like the design of that movie is interesting because it's both black and white and color in the one movie. And that's 1946.
Like the Hindenburg.
Yeah.
Adam and I watched that.
That movie, we don't have to go back to that. I love that movie.
But yeah, definitely, like, you know, when I was researching this, they said apparently that their inspiration for the look of the movie was, you know, Dutch painter Vermeer.
Oh, I love Vermeer.
With a pearl earring was an inspiration for the color palettes, and then the lighting, the shadow and stuff coming through the windows, which is interesting. So, another good collaborative process here.
And he was the first DP, or the first ever, I think, person to get an honorary Oscar.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
What was the honorary for? Just like Lifetime Achievement or something?
Yeah, I believe Lifetime Achievement.
Yeah, because I don't think he was nominated for Black Narcissus. You know, it was nominated for Best Art Direction, and it won for Best Art Direction, but not for cinematography.
The best picture that year, by the way, was Gentleman's Agreement.
Okay.
And that doesn't get any love in production design here, so. I'm so glad I got to watch this because it's a movie that I've heard about, and then just like you see pictures of and you're like, oh yeah, I gotta watch that. And so sitting here and diving deep into it, I loved it.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I mean, there's not a bad set in this movie, I don't think, at all.
No, it's fantastic.
It's really fantastic. I mean, it's just stands out. Every part of it, like the illusion that they're in the Himalayas, and they shot this on a backlot. I mean, and this is 80 years ago. This movie was made nearly. It stands up well. Like all the sets stand up well. The look, everything. It's very. If you're a young, want to get into production design or set decoration, this is a great movie to watch. Yeah. Just for the detail, the working with the DP, just the costumes, how the movie transitions from one look to another, and when she, finally goes mad, when Sister Ruth goes mad, and, she's got the red dress on, and that whole like vibe, and the lighting changes and everything, and just the look of the whole movie changes. It's a great movie just for storytelling. Yeah.
And it's suspenseful and
absolutely suspenseful, and a great, I find the story is interesting still. It's interesting for, the unfortunate thing about this movie is it's always because of the time period, it's the white man at the end is always "I told you so, ladies" kind of thing, right. Where the vast majority of the movie is about strong them. And women. I feel I have not watched the TV show that came out a couple of years ago, but I feel if this movie was made today, there would be less of him and more of the nuns.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how many.
Interjecting.
I don't know how many nun stories have nuns fighting. Like
Yeah.
they clearly are not getting along, and they don't shy away from showing that, which I liked as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that because there's not really an outside force that's like, oh, something's going to happen to us, and that's why. It's kind of, they're left to their own devices, and they all like Sister Honey, who was supposed to be planting all the potatoes and the vegetables, ended up. And she goes, I'm sorry, I kind of flipped out, and I started planting flowers and forget-me-nots, and we can't eat any of this food.
I couldn't get over that. I could not get over that.
She's like, I don't know what happened. It just came over me. I started thinking about something from my past.
Yeah.
They all had stuff in their pasts that were brought to the fore.
But they don't dive into what that was. Like, I feel like if this was made now, they would do some sort of flashback for every woman of like, why they're traumatic and what's it bringing out now. Yeah. Because they don't say anything about why she planted flowers and no food.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm blanking on her name, Sister.
The nice one, the sweet one.
Yes. Right. Oh, I can't remember her name. That wasn't Sister Honey. No.
Oh, Sister Honey was the nice one. Then there was the one in the hospital, and then there was the gardener one. Right. Yeah. And she has the whole thing about like the child, Sister Brimey. She was, the child dies. I can't do anything for the child, and it dies. And it feels like this is something that might have been tapping into her backstory or something from why she came on. And then we see Sister Clodagh, her whole flash thing of her, her lover who left her and all that. And
so let me ask you this, because it became a TV show. And, you're very passionate about it, which I love. Do you feel like you would be nervous designing it? Or would you want to copy it? Like, what would I would admit that I'd be troubled because it's so successful. Like, if someone asked me to redo Sound of Music, I'd have to say, no, it's perfect. I don't think I could do it. And this movie is pretty darn close to perfect too. And if you're not going to make it in a different way, like, how do you top this?
It's really something that you could not top. You could only really pay homage to. It's such a great look. And,
there would be such a spin on it now of like darkness and like.
I feel they'd want, let's make it more creepy, or let's have more fabric blowing in the wind. Like, it was just the right amount of fabric blowing in the wind. Yeah. This movie, it was just enough to establish that we're in a windy place, and we got these fantastic linen cloths and stuff that are kind of slightly worn, and they're flowing, and that's showing us. But I feel today they'd be like, let's have more cloth, let's do the whole like shot with all the cloth and everyone
you're lost in the cloth.
more we need more of this today. That's where this is just right. It's got enough of everything in this, and it's great contrast. It was a great decision for the nuns all to be wearing white as well. That was a good call, because they could have been in a darker color, they could have been in grays, but just be all white like that against all the detail. It's like they're kind of trapped in their whiteness. Yeah. In their
purity. They're in the purity.
Their virginity kind of vibe. And it's like they have all these pasts that are trying to break out. And it's great. It's just tension and everything. It's just such this movie as well. If you go online and just look up this movie, how many people have said this movie's been an inspiration for them as filmmakers or storytellers or designers. It's a lot. Yeah. It's just fantastic. And it's great that it does hold up so well, and I'm glad that we all enjoyed watching it.
I think I will check out the series, but you can't compare, really.
I wonder, I haven't watched the series. Did they only make just one season of it, I
think so.
Yeah.
It was on FX.
Okay.
So the final color film of 2 is Life with Father. A straight-laced, turn-of-the-century father presides over a family of boys and the mother who really rules the roost. So this was a book that was turned into a play that was the longest running play. Longest running Broadway non-musical play ever. It played on Broadway for nearly 8 years, 32 and change performances from 39 to 47, and held the record for 25 years until Fiddler on the Roof surpassed it. And then they turned it into a movie. And it was one of the highest, it was like $500,000 for the screenplay they paid. It was like one of the highest screenplays of the time. And it went back and forth from MGM to...
They paid Fox the Harrow author a ton of money, too. It was like $150,000 back in 1947.
Yeah, for that
so it's
guy.
interesting how they were really, I'm saying this because we have a writer strike going on, that, producers were willing to pay writers for great content.
Yeah.
Producers. I loved all the movies we saw, but I will say one of my favorite things about this movie was that it was so different than the other ones, and it was a comedy. And I think for comedies to tear into Oscar nominations is tough for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. We give so much more credit to drama. But this, it's beautiful to look at. It's very different. It's no Great Expectations. We can say that right off the bat. But it is beautiful. I loved the colors. I actually started saying some one-lines, and I made Brian watch some scenes from it because it's so up his alley in humor. But I enjoyed this movie a lot.
It had a budget of $4.7 million and made $6.4.
Okay.
It made its money back.
But that's that time, absolutely. It made over,
Well, and the fact that this took the same amount of time to film as Foxes of Harrow blows my mind. Like that, and like there's a scene where they dolly up the staircase, which probably was a big deal.
Really?
Which means that in this picture on the left, everything had to come out where that shadow is.
Yeah,
like
they had to pull that whole wall.
They had to pull that whole thing, and there's no seams in it. And I like studying that sort of thing.
Right.
I think it's fantastic woodwork throughout the house.
Lots of good detail, and it's interesting. I have to say, like the walls, the colors on the walls are very, everything is in their rooms are very flat. There's no wallpaper or anything, but we would have had wallpaper at this time,
Well, they had the carpet though. That showed that they were rich. They had wall-to-wall carpet.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. Of course they would have wallpaper during this time. You're right.
Yeah, wallpaper is what, like 18
Yeah, this is 1883.
Yeah.
And it is the Gilded Age. They would have had it.
Right.
Is this happening at the same time Foxes of Harrow were? Were they the similar period or no? No, they weren't because their costumes were so different.
Yeah, Harrow is earlier time period. This is Gilded Age time. That was like 1830s, I think.
Well,
I found it interesting too because Kim and I watched whatever decade had Sunshine Boys or year had Sunshine Boys. This was kind of the same formula that you have a play that got turned into a movie, and the scenery has to be entertaining for 2 hours, but there's not really a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I said to Kim in a text that it feels nearly like it could be a sitcom or something, or a multicam, in the sense that just purely story wise.
Yeah.
And, it's very kind of lighthearted and, I guess kind of like the production design, set decoration kind of reflects that. It's a comedy movie. It's definitely it's not no Great Expectations. There's no murderers on the marsh or anything, it's a different vibe.
You don't even need scenery. This could be a radio broadcast. Like there's
Absolutely.
No sight gags. There's no, it's not like it's I Love Lucy where you need the action of something or you need the door slam.
Now,
it does feel like a stage play a lot.
Now that dog, you need to see the little dog.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
The plant, when he gets that plant everywhere.
Yeah, the rubber plant is funny.
Yeah, it's I lied. There is some wallpaper there. It feels like, the amount of time they spend in the house set is probably, what is it, 50% of the movie?
80?
Way more than that.
Yeah.
They're only in the department store. They're outside. They're in their backyard.
And when he goes to get the new maid, he goes
church.
to the office for the new maid and the church stuff.
Yeah.
To be baptized.
And by the way, there's Santa Claus. That's Santa Claus from Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Interesting.
There was something I read too that broadcast or movie rules made them change. Like he couldn't say "God damn." He had to change it, but it makes me wonder if Black Narcissus ran into any trouble because they were doing something with nuns. Like, we take for granted rules now. I mean, there's so many rules on what can and can't be on children's TV. I don't even know anymore what's censored. Does Netflix even censor anything? I'm sure they do. We just don't even know what that is. But it was interesting to know that this movie, I mean, there's a point in which they're talking about being a Methodist and being Episcopalian, I think, and it's bad. But I mean, it's a joke. I think that the script is making fun of that, but like, that's as risky as they can be. Oh my God, you're a Methodist? Like, what a different time and period.
Well, they had, Frankly, My Dear, I Don't Give a Damn was 1939. And then so in the play and in the book, the last line is, I'm going to get baptized, damn it. And they didn't, I think it was Warner Brothers or MGM didn't want him to say damn it at the end. You're right. Like they censored it, but it had been in the play. It had been in the book, but they censored it for the movie.
I also feel this was a targeted movie where it was really promoting Christian values, and it was all this Episcopalian, Methodist, and I'm going to say my catechism and the ministers coming over to the kids.
Minister's a friend, and
it's just it's got a real kind of wholesome value. This movie is trying to promote that, and if you got those values, you're going to be a rich person. You're going to be a happy rich person if you.
No, you're right. There's definitely like a pledge, and they were catering to an audience. This shot's great here with them at the dining room table because it definitely has Downton Abbey vibes, and Downton Abbey's damn near perfect in my mind. But what I liked about this set over the Downton Abbey dining room set is that there's like a 45 at every corner, except for one corner. So shooting this dining room was relatively easy because I was like, they had to get around it and they moved where he sat. I know that sounds silly, but I've had to design rooms like this, and you can't just have a camera port in every square inch of the space because then you just can't do that.
Wait, are you on what I'm on? Wait, are you on It's Gold on the right?
Yeah. So when there's other shots of this room.
Delmonico's. That was the restaurant, I think.
There's an opening behind the woman with the gold and black stripe. There's a 45 there. And then there's one behind the butler who you're just seeing the head of, or whoever that person is on the left. Because there's two images that are bleeding together here.
Yeah.
But I studied that room, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna lift that layout at some point because it's spacious. And there's a 5 to 7 minute scene in that dining room, and I never got fatigued with it. I thought they shot that well, and that's hard. Directors look at those scenes, they're like, how do we get something on its feet? How do we do that? I'm like, well, it's not written that way. So I hope I can give you a room flexible enough to shoot it interesting.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
I love the drapery.
Drapery's great.
I actually think in their main house, like on the left, I think they chose that color to emphasize their red hair. That was my theory.
Oh, that's a great theory. All the walls, that's true. And also probably the skin tones. This is an early color movie.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Because a lot of the stills online that I was trying to grab are black and white. And then I went down like a rabbit hole, like, was this black and white and they colorized it? But it wasn't. They just have a ton of stills. And
also, the production designer of this, Robert Hass, he started his career in 1919. And, he went from silent right through the 20s and through the early talkies and all this. And this is one of his last movies. This was at the tail end of his career. He retired in 1949 or 50. So, he had like this amass of black and white, history in his design, I feel. But this looks great. I mean, the use of color in this is good, though.
Well, and what's interesting about what you just said, I didn't know that about him. It's really the decor that makes it colorful. It's very monochromatic almost in its form, other than the wood.
Yeah.
The lighting fixtures are fantastic too. The period and the the crystal.
Well, and the running joke that
sheets.
he's never gonna have electricity. So these are all gas.
Yeah.
You know, I found that interesting.
I mean, that lampshade on the left is ridiculous. I tried to get another one. It's in that right one too. Like, it's crazy. It's stupid.
Yes. Yeah, that's very cool.
So I you know, it's a beautiful looking movie.
Do you have any shots of the department store?
I don't. I was gonna go back and watch it, but then it would be like a like off my phone and not be as clear as this. But I couldn't find any online of the department store.
So this movie is in its category because it was colorized and Miracle on 34th Street wasn't. Sorry, I'm still thinking about that. Because, like, Miracle on 34th Street is definitely more interestingly designed than this is.
But Miracle on 44th Street was black and white when it came out.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That, like, that's why it couldn't compete with this in some ways.
But this was shot in color, wasn't it? It's not been colorized.
This
It's
is
an
in
actual
color.
movie.
But for a weird reason, when you look it up and you Google it and you look for images, a lot of the images for this movie are in black and white, which confused me.
Yeah.
Stills,
production stills.
I
just want to finally say about the department store. If for anybody who's listening to this and watches this movie, I think the department store is a great set. It's huge. It's a massive set on a soundstage, and they have a lot of detail. I think it's one of the best sets in this entire movie.
All the old display
cases. Not even in there that
cases.
long, but there's a lot going on in it.
Huge windows.
Unbelievable.
Set dressing is great. Yeah, the fabrics, all the stuff, just the mannequins, just anything. It's just everything is so. It's a really good set.
Yeah,
I think it's good research for any time anybody has to like if you had to recreate a department store, you're going to find that this movie does a better job than anything I think you're going to find online as far as a historic photo, because you see the scope of it and you see all the detail. There is matte painting in this movie too. The end when the when the carriage goes away. But what's funny about it is that they show the New York street. There's nobody on it.
Yeah.
They're all alone. And I found that interesting that it's like, oh, they painted the matte painting, but there's no people in it.
There's only that one shot I have has the windows open. Every other shot, the shears are drawn.
Was this a Fox movie?
I think
so.
Yeah, 20th century, I think.
Yeah. So this and Fox's a Horror were done.
It was shot at WB. No, it was shot at WB.
Oh, WB. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So they used probably the backlot of WB for some of the, the tram or whatever, the streetcar with the horse and all that.
I've only seen this movie one other time. My husband likes this movie, which I think is hysterical. It's a good film, and I like you said, like it's almost like a sitcom type of, and definitely a play type sets, but a really great amount of detail in the woodworking and the staircase and the pocket doors and the mantles and everything. Like, this was a big set too. Probably not as big as Fox's, but Fox of Harrows.
It's definitely, you can see why it was nominated for art direction. It was great. I mean, the detail is there, and for a comedy as well, it's a good nomination as well.
All right, so color and black and white being equal, who are we voting for the Oscar of 1947?
Black. I would vote Black Narcissus.
Yeah, I would definitely say that as well. Just the overall design was great.
What do you think?
Gosh, I mean, I probably would, but I want to point out one thing. I'm lobbying here. Remember that first entry that in Great Expectations when they go through the staircase? That staircase makes no sense. And they did it 100% theatrical, that you walk from the side door and then you go up some steps and you go up some other steps and then you follow up the railing. I mean, that's outrageous design. And I love, love, love that. So like, that's a difficult arm wrestle compared to like the Canary Room, which Black Narcissus was beautiful, but the design and the way the story was told in Great Expectations to me was really phenomenal.
Yeah, it was definitely, I feel if it would have been interesting to see that Great Expectations if it had been photographed as a color movie. It would have been really, really would have stood out as well. But I mean, it's as a black and white movie, it's fantastic as well. But it would have been interesting to see that as a color movie. But I still love it, but I just feel Black Narcissus is definitely the Oscar winner.
Out of the 4, I would say Black, and I still lobby for Miracle on 34th Street. I think they got it wrong. But yeah, it's a great year to investigate because it's different stories and it's different type. Like, I mean, even though Fox's has a house and this has a house, they're just different and shot different, and the black and white versus the color of it is fantastic.